I've been involved in several interviews, ranging from operative role interviews, that is technician and operator role related interviews, as well as I've been involved in supervisory management, middle management, and senior management role interviews. What I'll be sharing with you today will be based specifically on some of the experiences I've gathered over the years, which have been tried and tested to be exceptionally accurate and successful. As such, I would treat all of you to pay keen attention to the tips and advice I will be sharing with you, especially as you prepare to embark on your job hunting journey. Okay, so today, basically, I'll be focusing my discussions on CV and interview preparation tips. This forms part of the broader job hunting techniques, this journey, that is your job hunting journey. And I am sure we'll get the opportunity to discuss the other areas of interest at a different time if God permits. I've had a discussion with Gideon to see if we could schedule a second session so we could discuss the other areas that cannot be addressed in this session. And if there is time, I'll also talk about how to predict interview questions, as well as discuss how to answer the one interview question you will surely meet in all interviews, that is, introduce yourself to the panel. When it comes to applying for a job, your CV is the first chance you have to make a lasting first impression. This simple document, the documents that you share, will help you get your foot in the door, get an interview invite, and inevitably help you land, be screened or selected for an interview. And I'm sure people will be wondering, why should companies or employers focus so much on a document, a Word document or PDF document, instead of focusing on the person itself? Bear in mind that most employers do not know who you are or what you are made of. And as such, the CV is the only opportunity for them to get to know you and see what you're capable of. Then they use the interview as an opportunity to confirm your experiences, your skills, and your attributes as you have stated in your CV. What people don't know is that the style of a CV can get you on top of the applicant's pile. You just don't get up and write any CV. So it is important to invest some time into the preparation of your CV. See your CV as a marketing tool or product. You can have a product with a very good content. However, it might not attract the right audience if not packaged well. It is therefore important to actually package your CV, that's use the right style or type for the right job application to attract the necessary audience you require. And when it comes to writing a CV, there are several options and styles available. While some may say that a basic template is all you need, this isn't always the case. And it's important to choose the right style that suits the type of position you're applying for. I would want to spend some few minutes to talk about the types of CV before we delve deep into how to write the CV, the layout, and the formatting itself. There are 4 general types of CVs. We have the chronological, the functional, the combination, and then the targeted CVs. And understanding their purpose can help you choose the one that will work best in your situation when applying for jobs. So looking at the functional CV, it focuses on your skills rather than your experiences. And I'm sure you know the distinction between your experience and your skills. However, I want to actually take a time, probably in our next session, to describe the different skills and the soft and the hard skills that you need when preparing for your interviews. So back to the functional CV. It is great for first-time job hunters that don't have a lot of job experiences. And this actually works well for fresh graduates. So if you just graduated, you've never really worked experience, this is a type of CV you should be looking at. A typical example also will be for those that will be changing jobs. Let's say you realize that I mentioned I was an industrial engineer and an HR. So when moving from an industrial engineering field into an HR field, you must know that now the HR field is more or less like a green field to you. And for that reason, it is important that you look at focusing your CV on your skills rather than experiences that you have in the HR field, because in any case, you do not have any experience in that field. It gives you the flexibility to emphasize your skills and present them in a way that will help you distinguish yourself from other applicants. The next CV type I want to speak about is the chronological CV. And this is the most common type of CV. Most CVs we receive from applicants when they apply for jobs is mostly the chronological type of CV. This type allows you to list your work history first. It usually begins with your most recent job and works backwards through the rest. Thus, you begin with stating your current or last job, that is if you are not in any active employment, and then followed by the past job experiences. So for example, if I'm the lead for human resources now, previously I was, let's say, the training and development specialist. If I'm working out my chronological CV in terms of the work experiences or professional experience, I'll first start with my current job, which is the lead for human resources or the human resources manager. And then once I write that and give out the accountabilities, I'll follow it up with my most recent role before this current role, which is my training and development specialist. It actually gives potential employers a good overview of your work experiences at first glance, which is important in almost every situation. Remember, most of the time, recruiters will only spend approximately between 30 seconds to 1 minute in reviewing a CV, unless something catches their attention. So it is important that your CV is able to arouse the interest of the recruiter to make them want to read more. The next type of CV I will speak about is the combination CV. The combination CV is a good way to combine parts of a functional CV and a chronological CV in order to provide employers with a good overview of your capabilities. This type of CV normally lists your skills and experiences first, and then your work history in reverse chronological order. And with this type of CV, compared to the chronological order, while showing your work history, it gives you the opportunity to highlight key skills required by the role. That will help you get a job you are such key elements. Hello? Okay. Gideon, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Benny. Go on.
All right, thank you. This gives you an opportunity to actually highlight key skills, the key skills which are required by the role in the CV, so that when the employer picks the CV, it becomes easy to probably align itself with it and see what they need from you. Now we have the last type of CV, which is the targeted CV. And with this type of CV, as the name implies, it requires you to tailor the CV to the requirements of the role you're applying for. And truthfully, it is the most difficult and time-consuming type of CV to use because you have to update it for each individual positions you're applying for. Just imagine applying for, let's say, 10 or 20 roles at a time, and you have to draft a CV for each role. So it makes it a little difficult and time-consuming. However, it is very effective because then it is more tailored and more targeted. It gives you the opportunity to highlight the experiences and skills you have that are relevant to the available position. So basically, these are the 4 types of CVs, and choosing the right type of CV is a very important part of the job hunting process. So in your job hunting process, you have to make sure that you take the time to understand the pros and cons of each of these types before using them. Let's now look at how to write and format the CV itself. There is no rule on how to write a CV, especially with the number of sections on the CV itself. A lot actually depends on your experience and where you're applying to, the industry you're applying to, the specific roles that you're applying to, and even the company you're applying to. However, some essential sections do stay the same in all forms of CVs, irrespective of the type you're using, irrespective of the role you're applying for. There are specific sections that are essential, they are important, and they have to be part of the CV. So these sections include the contact information, which is the first area on the CV. It is then followed by the CV summary or your career objective, then followed by the work experience. After the work experience, your education follows and your unique skills. Now, these are sections. Even though I'm saying it follows, this is ideal. However, you can tweak it however you want. You can choose to start with the contact information, followed by the career objective. Now, the contact information and the career objective, you can't really switch them. So the contact information comes first, the career objective follows. But in terms of the experience and dedication, others prefer to have the education coming before the work experience. There are those that even prefer the skills coming before the education and then the work experiences. The most important thing you should note is that these sections must appear on the CV, irrespective of their arrangement. They must be seen on the CV, because when we are reviewing the CV, the career objective gives us a quick glance of what you are capable of and what you look out for, what your aspirations are. Your contact information is what we use to reach out to you. So if you provide a CV with no contact information, no email, no contact number, then it means even if you are shortlisted, we'll be unable to reach out to you. The education is critical, because when you look at the minimum requirements for every role or minimum competencies that we check out for in every screening is the education and the work experience. Education forms part of the minimum requirements. So it is very important that you state the education, and this must include your qualifications. So the school you attended and the qualification you attained. And then the unique skills. It is important because I spoke about personal attributes. Now, the unique skills gives us an indication of the skills that you have in terms of your personal attributes, in terms of the softwares that you are capable of, and even certain technical competencies that you possess that might not be stated directly in the work experience, but however you possess the skills. It is important we know, so we could also, for all you know, that is what will even arouse the interest of the recruiter. These are essential sections you must include in your CV. It is important that you ensure that your CV contains these sections. Once you have these on your CV, you can consider adding other sections. And these other sections can include certifications and awards, languages you speak, your personal projects that you've worked on, either in school or personally, what you volunteered to do, and even volunteer experiences that you've been involved in. It is important. Look, you might not see the relevance of certain volunteering activities that you were involved in, but trust me, some of them gives us an indication of certain skills and certain experiences you've gained out of the volunteering experiences that we could actually use. Probably might not even be related to the role itself, but then it gives an indication of what you can do. You can even look at adding hobbies, but I don't really advise people adding hobbies, because if you want to add a hobby to your CV, you don't have to be using that cliche way of writing it, like stating, I like playing football. It is irrelevant, because if you play football, I don't know how, unless probably we compete in football matches as an organization, I don't know how relevant it will be to the recruiter. However, if you state that you were or you are the captain of your school football team, it gives an indication of teamwork and then leadership skills. Then it becomes relevant to the CV that you're writing, instead of just stating that you like playing football. So in as much as I do not advise people to not really put a section on hobbies, I say if you can make it to your benefit, craft it in a way that it will work towards what is required by the role, such that when we see, we will be aroused by that to even want to, select you as part of the selection process, then please don't add it. But if you can do that, then it is all good for you. All of these focuses on the structure or specific areas to have on the CV. But the first thing the job recruiter notices about any CV is its layout or formatting. The layout makes it easy to review. So if not properly done, it becomes difficult to review and even discourages recruiters in reviewing it in the first place. In working out the layout or format of the CV, you need to ensure that you keep the colors and font sizes and the headings consistent. You don't have to have a heading size with about 20, and then you have another heading size with 18, another 12. It makes it so difficult to flow. It has to be easy on the eye. So I would recommend using a font that stands out, but not too much. You can actually use font sizes such as fonts such as Arial, Calibri, Roboto, or even Ubuntu. Do not use the comic type of fonts in writing your CV. It is actually not official and professional. If you use the comic type of fonts, it doesn't make your CV official. For that reason, it's easy for them to put it on the rejection pile. Also, ensure to keep the details clear. Pick the right font size between 14 and 16 for headings. And then for normal text, you can use between 11 and 12. That is when formatting the font sizes of your CV. So basically what you're trying to do is to ensure that the information is well organized and everything is easy to find in one glance. Finally, and this is very important, you have to ensure that you always save your CV as a PDF. It is good to have the Word format for editing purposes. But before you upload for the receiving when applying for the job, ensure it is in the PDF format. This is to ensure that the formatting does not change when you upload the CV. Sometimes when it's in Word, because of the various machines or let me say softwares that people use on their PCs, when it gets to the recruiter and they open it, for all you know, it was looking well structured on your PC. By the time it gets to the recruiter, it will be distorted or the formatting might change because probably it doesn't even have that font type on this machine. And for that reason, it will pick the default and change the entire layout or formatting. So it is important to ensure that you keep it in the PDF format. I wish I had enough time to where we can together develop a draft CV and we build on that. But unfortunately, I have to move on to the second subject area of discussion for today due to the limited time provided. However, I will share with you several templates of the various types of CVs for your personal keep and use. This will be shared to you through the WhatsApp platform for you to download. And Gideon mentioned to me, he will be reaching out to you to get your email addresses. He will also be sharing the course materials itself. I mean, the discussion materials itself and all relevant materials that will be good for you through your email for you to download and use. So I'll be adding all of this to Gideon, and I'm sure by this evening or probably tomorrow, you should receive it in your mails and on the WhatsApp page. Let's move on to the second part of today's discussion, which is preparing for your interview. Before we talk about how to prepare for an interview, I want us to look at what an interview really is. So an interview is a formal meeting at which someone is asked questions in order to find out if they are suitable for a job or possesses a potential to perform a role. Normally, interviews are the first time an employer has in meeting a prospective employee. The employer will want to assess whether or not you have the qualities to perform the role competently. If you have the experiences that they are looking out for, or you've actually had the experience in a similar role, and also whether they like you as a person and whether you are likely to fit into the team environment. Many interviews now will be structured around the fact that the interviewer will only assess you against your responses to the questions that are asked of you. For example, when I interviewed candidates for positions in the mining sector when I joined previously, some years back, it wasn't so necessary to take into account what the interviewee was wearing. He or she could have turned up in jeans or trainers, but you weren't allowed to take this into consideration when assessing the candidate's motivation for joining. Despite these restrictions, I believe any person who turns up to a job interview in jeans or trainers, unless specifically requested to do so, doesn't deserve to get a job. Now, I'm sure most of you would be wondering why. Look, I believe it shows a lack of motivation and commitment for the job, even before they have started. A job interview is your opportunity to shine. It is your chance to show the employer that you are the person for the job and that you will do all that you can to perform above and beyond expectations if successful. Just by being at the interview, you should naturally be enthusiastic about the prospect of working for the company. Why be there if your heart is not in it in the first place? Your appearance is an indication of how prepared you are and how serious you take this and how eager you are to be in this role. So if you come there and you are dressed in a jeans, autofista and all that, and you tell me it's a mining sector, Charlie Buga Buga, so we don't really have to take that into consideration. Obviously, I wouldn't say anything to you. We'll go on with the interview, but your chances of getting it will be very low unless you're exceptionally good and we do not have any candidates that we could interview for the same role. So now let's look at how you prepare for an interview. Before you start preparing for the interview, And this is very important. This we'll first look at predicting the interview questions. Then we'll look at appearance, your personal appearance. We'll also look at traveling to the interview, and then even punctuality. And probably, if there is no time, we would look at the other sections, in the next discussion, probably maybe. But before you start preparing for the job interview, you must first get a copy of the job description and person specifications for the job you're applying for. Now, the job description and the person specifications are actually part of the job advert itself. When you look at the job accountabilities and other competencies stated in the job advert, you will be able to identify the key skills and competencies actually required for the role. So the vast majority of employers actually assesses you mainly against these important competencies. That is, you realize that for every job advert, apart from the purpose, there are key accountabilities that are stated. And basically, this is what you're coming to do. So you need to be able to, first of all, identify these key accountabilities that you're coming to perform. And then apart from the technical accountabilities, what other person specifications in terms of your personal attributes are they required, do they require, or are they looking out for? Once you are able to have all of this in place, your first task is to try to think of areas where you match the job description and the person specification. You've been able to identify the job description, the key accountabilities, and the personal attributes that you're looking out for. Now, you must also identify personally, how do you match these key accountabilities in terms of technical experiences? And also how do you match the person specifications requirements? Secondly, your next focus will be on identifying the key elements from the accountabilities and key and skills or person specifications provided in the job adverts. Now, once you have identified these key elements, the next thing to do is to set a few possible questions to expect for each key element. And you can easily research online for these, questions. Let me take an example to make it more practical. So for example, suppose we have an administrative officer job advert with the following, let's say, accountabilities. Responsible for answering phone calls and transferring them as necessary as the first accountability. And then the second accountability being responsible for communicating with relevant agencies, customers, and stakeholders. The third accountability, assisting in planning and arranging meetings. The fourth being responsible for managing correspondence by answering emails and sorting mails. And then let's say finally, maintaining stock lists and ordering office supplies as needed. Now, these are the key accountabilities that have been stated in the job advert. Let's also say the aforementioned are all key elements you have identified from the job advert, because obviously there are instances where you see the job advert to be so many. In terms of the accountability, they state so many key accountabilities, but there are specific ones that are relevant to the role. For instance, if I should see an accountability such as liaising with other functional departments in getting the work done. Obviously, this is true. This is something I'll be doing, but it doesn't mean it's a key accountability. So in identifying the key accountabilities, look at the purpose of the role, look at the accountabilities provided under, and look at the ones that really relates to the role, something that you'll be doing. And mostly they are in the active form, not the passive forms. So once you've been able to identify them, the next thing you do is ask yourself, what are some of the possible questions you can be asked on these key elements or accountabilities? If you are able to come up with these questions, the next thing to do is to look for the answers to them. So let me just dwell on my previous example on the administrative officer.
Hello, Benny.
Yeah, Gideon.
Please, just a quick one. The account initially will take up to only 100 people. It has been upgraded and it can take up to 1,000. So all of you on the call, if your friend is finding difficulty to join, just tell them they can rejoin. It can now take up to 1,000. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Gideon.
All right.
So I'm going to dwell on my previous example on the administrative officer job advert. And based on the accountabilities, We will take them one after the other, identify certain key or possible questions that can be asked for all of them. The 5 accountabilities provided. So the first accountability was responsible for answering calls, phone calls, and transferring them as necessary. A possible question to this accountability can be, as an administrative assistant, you will be the face of your department. How do you plan on maintaining a positive attitude while receiving multiple requests throughout the day? You realize that this question, even though the accountability focuses on phone calls and transferring them as necessary, this question is actually based on multitasking. Because as you work, you will be answering calls. And the fact that you answer calls, and multiple calls for that matter, does not mean it should affect your work output and your deliverables, such that you would come and say that you were unable to achieve or complete this particular task because there were so many phone calls coming in. So you'll be assessed in a way that you will want to find out that you'll be able to combine all of the tasks you'll be doing together with the phone calls. So the question, as an administrative assistant, you will be the face of your department. How do you plan on maintaining a positive attitude while receiving multiple requests throughout the day? In our next session, we'll be talking about the various types of interview questions, the situational, the behavioral, the technical, and the rest. This is a typical situational interview questions. And in responding to these questions, you normally use the STAR technique. I'll probably, after everything, I'll just give you a quick overview of the STAR technique, but we'll discuss that into details in our next session. Another question that we could also set for ourselves for this same accountability will be, you'll be responsible for multiple phone lines. Do you have experience handling high call volumes? Now, this question is to test your past experiences in performing that task. So when you go online, or you can draft your own responses. We're not going to talk about the responses now because it will be part of our second session. We'll actually go through all of these responses, the responses to expected responses to these questions and other commonly, asked questions at interviews. But then this is a question that tests your past experiences and how you handled it. So the interviewer or the panel wants to understand if you've experienced such a task before and how you managed it. That will inform them on how well you can perform if placed into the role. The second key element talks about communicating with relevant agencies, customers, and stakeholders. And a possible question to these key elements can be, can you give an example of when you have communicated effectively with customers or stakeholders? This is actually straightforward, just like the second question to the first accountability. It's testing your understanding and also your experience in performing this particular task. And your response will inform them whether you can perform it well or not. Another way they can also ask the question is, can you give an example of a time you have had to deal with a customer query or complaint, or testing your experience in the performance or execution of that particular accountability? The third identified key element from the key accountabilities is assisting in planning and arranging meetings. And this is a common one for most administrative roles because it's a key aspect of the work they perform. Just like the PA, most PA, that is personal assistance questions, you would also see this as part of it in an interview. So with this, you can be asked a question such as, if I asked you to schedule a meeting and ensure that all aspects of the meeting are taken care of, what will you do? This is a very practical question. And with this question, you're supposed to state from start to end. Don't come and just give a summary. You're supposed to state from start to end how you schedule the meeting and how it ends. Another possible question you can expect will be, have you arranged a meeting? Just like the rest, they are testing your past experiences in the execution of this accountability. And then a follow-up question can be, if so, how did you go about organizing it? Now, the follow-up question is not different from the first question we asked, which says, if I asked you to schedule a meeting and ensure that all aspects of the meeting are taken care of, what will you do? It's actually the second part of this question. If so, how did you go about organizing it? Now, the interviewer expects you to practically tell them how you handled it from the beginning to the end. So if you set these questions before the interview and you go to the interview and make this question, because you've already practiced it and you know what goes in meeting preparation, it becomes easy for you to flow and demonstrate so much confidence. Now, the fourth identified key element talks about managing correspondence by answering emails and sorting mail. A possible question to these key elements will be, you will frequently be asked to send out departmental emails and updates. How would you describe your writing skill level? The last identified key elements from the key accountabilities was maintaining stock lists and ordering office supplies as needed. A possible question to these key elements can be, can you give an example when you had to manage office supplies and how to rearrange or restock? Now, these are all just to test your past experiences. And it's important that you also identify that these are all situational questions. And for that reason, you use the technique in responding to situational interview questions. So this is what I recommend you do when you are preparing for the interview. Get the job description from the job advert, identify the key elements from the job description, and prepare possible questions for each identified key element. Once you have your questions for each key element, draft expected responses to each question. Ensure to research best responses to these questions and draft your personal responses for your use. There are people who will go online, pick whatever have been stated there, they do baba, they will chew everything in their head and come and say the same thing. And you'll be surprised another candidate will also come and say the same thing, and you are wondering, how come both of you are saying the same thing? It is always important that when you go online and get the expected responses, or when we share or discuss expected responses with you, you try and tailor it to suit yourself. Then it becomes personal and more engaging when responding to the question. Also remember, I mentioned these are situation-based questions, and as such, the best approach to responding to this question is to use the STAR technique. And the STAR technique means you explain the situation you were involved in. That is the S, the situation. The T is the task. You will go onto the task, explain the tasks that have to be completed or carried out. The A is the actions you took. You explain what actions you took and what actions others took in getting the situation handled or managed. And then finally, you explain the results following the actions you took. So the actions you took and the actions that others took, what was the results? The key thing is always ensure the results are positive. So basically, that is how you respond to all, interview questions that are situational based, okay? I'm sure when we have enough time, we'll go through into details how to respond to situational and behavioral interview questions, and even the commonly asked interview questions. The next area of focus when preparing for your job interview, as mentioned, is your personal experience and personal appearance. This carries far more weight than people think. First impressions are so important. It says a lot about who you are. Remember that you only get one opportunity to create first impression. So unless it is specifically not required, you should always dress in proper business attire, such as a suit and a tie, or any formal dress, and equivalent if you're a female. Your shoes must be clean. If you need a haircut, then get it done some few days before. I'm sure you'll be thinking, why am I saying this? I've sat in interviews and I've seen people come with very bushy hair, beards and all that, dirty shoes and all. You might want to present yourself so professional, such that even if the interview goes bad, your appearance alone makes it difficult for the interviewer to even make a decision against you. The last thing you want to be doing is rushing around for your clothes or shoes on the big day, only to find out that you threw them away. So it is important that you get all of these things packed somewhere. Get your dresses, iron your stuff, sometimes even your underwear. It might sound ridiculous, but it's all about limiting the stress that you will already be under on the day of the interview. The next thing to focus on is traveling to the interview. How are you going to get to the interview? Where is the location of the interview center? and even which bus to board to the location, or are the buses running on time. If you know this, if you have the responses to these questions, it makes you readily prepared. They are obvious questions, but important nonetheless. Again, it's all down to preparation. Remember, if possible, take a contact number of the person that invited you to the interview with you, just in case you are going to be late for the interview. Then you can call them in advance to tell them that you'll be late due to a breakdown or probably traffic congestion. In a way, it makes the interviewer know that you are making an attempt, even though you're running late. And probably if they would have sacked you, they'll actually change their mind. If you're also traveling by a car, don't wear your jacket. Hang it up on a coat hanger so that it does not caress when you arrive in the interview. So I would probably talk about, I can see that I've exceeded my time, but probably I'll speak about punctuality and then put a stop to it and we continue the next one. This punctuality can be related to actually traveling to the interview, and it's still just as important. Make sure you leave with plenty of time to spare before your interview. It is far better to arrive an hour early than 5 minutes late. I usually arrive 30 minutes before my interview and sit in the car and reread the research I've made on the role or information about the company that I'm applying to. I've sat in interviews where people have come late, just about 5 minutes late, and they've actually missed the opportunity because for all you know, you're the only one going to be interviewed. The panel sits down, waits for you for a while, unable to reach you, and then they close up and leave. You get there and just imagine traveling from the north, coming to Obuasi for an interview and not meeting the panel, and you have to go back. So it's just important that you are punctual some minutes before the scheduled time for the interview, so you do not miss the opportunity. Like I said, there are other areas such as the interview format, the communications you use, the language you use during the interview, questions to ask and which questions not to ask at the interview, and even expected responses to some of the most common interview questions you're likely to meet in an interview. We will discuss all of these into details in our next session. I will end here and probably answer any questions if you have any. I don't know how the facilitator wants it to be. If it's going to be, if I have to answer the questions now or probably after the entire session, and that is fine. But this brings me to the end of my submission. Gideon and Wilfred. Hello, Gideon.
Yeah, Benny, thank you very much. Wilfred is taking over. Hello, Wilfred.
Hello. Hello, Gideon.
Yeah, Wilfred, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. That was very insightful. So, in summary, to and I am sure you will want to.
Hello, Wilfred, you are breaking.
Hello.
Go ahead, Wilfred.
Some few questions. Let me invite her. Hello, Gift.
Yeah, Wilfred, and let's move on to Seth whilst they write down their questions. They should type them in the chat box. So let's, Seth can actually start.
Okay, so
right, Wilfred, so let me take over. Right, so Benny, thank you very much for that insightful presentation. It's very practical. So we move on to Seth Adije. Seth Adije. So Seth, I'm unmuting you so you can roll on.
Hi, good evening, guys.
Good evening, Seth.
All right. Am I being heard loud and clear?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, great. I'd want to share my screen. It makes it easy for me to talk when I'm looking at prompts. So, host, could you please enable me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right. All right, is the screen showing, please?
Yes, it is.
All right. So good evening, guys, and thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here to talk about how to improve employability and marketability. We've had an exciting session with Benny, and he's touched on how to prepare for interviews and prepare the CVs, but we'll have to get ourselves in that position where we would have to display the skills we just learned. And this is what I would endeavor to impart in the next 30 minutes. I will not cover everything that is possible in this field because we've just had 30 minutes. I wish I would even make it shorter. But in subsequent sessions, we'll be covering other topics that would help, just like Benny originally said. All right, so it is very clear that much of the people in this audience are students who are preparing to enter the workforce. However, we do have a couple of guys who are probably in their service years and are looking to be retained, or we might even have people who are out of work. They've gone past their uni years or service, but they're out of work and they're looking to get back in, or others are even employed, but are looking to get better opportunities. And this talk is tailored to address all the categories of people I've mentioned earlier. It is essential to understand how to stand out in a very competitive job market. And this requires that we need to enhance our skills. We need experiences and qualifications that would help us to stand out. Another aspect that we'll be talking about is leveraging technology and networking opportunities to increase our chances of securing employment. Well, as for myself, I've been in the field of developing talents for about a decade now, and I'm heavy into the training and development field. During this period, I've helped many people, students and professionals, to get them closer to their career goals. And I've seen firsthand the impact that employability and marketability have on a person's career. I've sat in countless interviews. I am currently sitting in one. As a matter of fact, I did sit in one this morning, even though it's a Sunday. And it's very necessary because you could tell that there are a lot of gaps that people need to fill in order to really stand out. The high flyers, you could easily pick them up in the interview, and the ones who are struggling, you could also see them. So in this talk, I'll share with you some tips. Like I said, it wouldn't be all the tips that would be necessary, but I would do well to share with you much of the tips that would help improve your employability and marketability chance based on my experience and research. So enough of the long talk, let's get started. All right, so now let's dive into the first part of our discussion, enhancing your skills, experiences, and qualifications. So first and foremost, it is essential to understand that in today's job market, having the right skills is crucial. Employers are looking for candidates who do not only have the right educational qualifications, but also possess a range of skills that are relevant in their industry. So the question is going to be that, what are the top skills that employers look for in candidates? I cannot give you the entire list, but these are some of the stuff that they look out for, even though they may vary depending on the industry you find yourself in, whether you're into mining, pharmaceuticals, or healthcare, it will depend. But these ones kind of cut across almost every industry. So the first part is communication skills. you would have to develop this. And communication skills is basically you being able to articulate ideas effectively, listen actively, and collaborate with others. Another skill that you would want to develop is problem-solving skills. And this is the ability to identify, analyze, and solve complex problems. You'd also want to develop leadership skills, which is the ability to lead and inspire others. This is very, very critical because even though you might be going into or seeking an entry-level position, if you possess this skill, you are so sought after by employers. Most importantly, you need your technical skills. So these are the skills specific to a particular job that you're chasing or the industry. So it could be, say, coding, graphic design, digital marketing, or metallurgy, or project management. You will need to develop these skills very much. It is not enough to learn the answers in the interview, and it is not enough to design a pretty CV. They're very important, but these things should help put you way above everyone else. Then we've got adaptability and flexibility. You are not going to work as an island, so you need to develop the ability to adapt to change and thrive in a very dynamic and changing world. Now, how can these skills, I've mentioned, how can these skills be acquired? Well, one way is to gain practical experience through internships. Probably if you're in the uni, you've spent some years in there, you definitely would have the chance to try this out. Take it seriously, please, because experience is important, like Benny did say, but if you are in school, that is one thing that you lack very much. So take these internship opportunities very seriously. The other part is that volunteer to work, okay? You need the experience, you need the skills. Nothing comes on a silver platter. So sometimes you'd want to volunteer. And when people or employers get to know that you are willing to go the extra mile, you become endearing to them, sorry. And who knows, you might be marked as a person who could fill in a role when you are ready for it. You could also fill in for part-time jobs. Okay, so part-time jobs are easy to get in a way because there's no full-time commitment by the employers. Again, not only will this help you to develop new skills and knowledge, but it would also provide you with valuable work experience that you can add up to your CV. So do not let these things slide. If you have volunteered, please put it on your CV. If you have gone through internships or done part-time jobs, please put them on your CVs. They would help you very much. All right. Another way to enhance your skill is to pursue further education, okay? So you could go for professional courses, which is very separate from what you are going through in the uni. So there are institutions like Imperial College of Mines and Safety that offer professional courses, even though you are still in school, or even if you are working or out of work, you could take these professional courses to enhance your skills and experiences. Well, these not only help you to acquire new skills, but it also shows to the employers that are looking at your CV that you are a person who is committed to continuous learning and development. You are thriving relentlessly to build yourself up. And this is endearing to all employers. So please keep in mind that to enhance your employability and marketability, you need to focus on developing the right skills and experiences that are relevant to your industry. Underline that are relevant to your industry. It is good to learn in a lot of stuff, but you can only spend as much time you have in your hands on the stuff that you could. So please, whatever you do, whatever courses you take, it should be deliberate and it should be feeding into the relevant industry that you wish to find yourself in. By doing so, you'll be better equipped and you would stand a better chance of succeeding in getting the right career that you need. Okay, so that's the first part. Now let's move on to the second part of our discussion, leveraging technology to increase employability. I cannot say this enough. Technology is transforming the job market in a blistering pace that sometimes it's hard to keep up with. And candidates who can harness this power have a significant advantage over those who cannot. Well, how can you leverage technology to increase your employability? One is that you could build a personal professional website, like what you see on the screen right now. This is my website. It's adeji.com. You can check it out. It's got stuff about me, my career path, what I've been through, and some thoughts. Now, this puts me in a certain bracket of people where stories about myself can be accessed just like that. I can publish this. I've got my email in my own name. These are subtle ways of ringing bells in prospective employers' mind. They get to know that you are serious about what you do, and they get to know stuff that you could not even say in interviews. However, guys, I know some might be scratching their heads and say, hey, come on, website. That's way up there. And I understand if you do not have the budget for a personal website, it is okay. There are tons of other tools that you can leverage if you cannot get a personal website. Like this. Looks familiar? Well, this is LinkedIn. And this is a free platform. If you are seeking to be employed and you are not on this platform, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. Having a strong online presence is crucial. This is where all the real professionals gather, and you'd want to get yourself mixed in here. And guess what? There's no gate fee. You can take advantage of this. Yes, there are paid versions where you get additional features, but even the free version is enough to get you through the door and get you noticed. Having a strong online presence means having a professional looking profile, okay? There are other social media platforms that we will touch lightly on, but I would want to focus very much on LinkedIn. You need to have a professional profile that showcases your skills, your experiences, and your achievements. And when I say professional, it doesn't mean you should go put a passport picture without a smile. No. However, you don't want to go put the party pictures you also have there. This is a professional field, and you would want to keep it as such. Remember that the world has changed. Many employers often use social media to find and screen candidates, okay? So it is important to ensure that your online presence is professional. I have to repeat it. It's professional, up-to-date, and consistent. I'm coming back to it being professional, okay? Anything that's digital is forever, all right? Once you have it online, it is there forever. Even if you think you've deleted it, it's kind of there. So you need to be deliberate with whatever it is that you do on social media. So are you the person who's showing his drunk or her drunk self at parties? You be careful, it's going to bite you when you least expect it. Or are you a person who is say, throwing swear words all around on social media? Or even negatively, well, not negatively speaking about concepts or political parties or governments in a very degrading way. Well, if your career path is to be an activist who is known to have sour mouth, then that's good for you. But ideally, when you are believing that you are in this forum, it is clear that you want to be in a professional setting and you would want to avoid these things. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be liberal with your thoughts, but you should be able to carry it out in a professional way. Underline that word too. So social media can be a very powerful tool, okay, for networking and job search. So platforms like LinkedIn, like I've already mentioned, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, WhatsApp can all be used to connect with professionals in your industry. the stuff you put on your statuses. They are critical. You can use all these social media platforms to get in touch with professionals in your industry, to join groups and discussions, and even find job opportunities. However, I'm going to state it again, be sure to use these platforms wisely and ensure that your activity is professional and relevant to your career goals. Thirdly, how to leverage technology is that there are tons and tons of knowledge to be acquired online through learning resources such as Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning. Many of these courses are free, and don't fall for that trick. The fact that it is free doesn't mean that it's worthless. A lot of people who have degrees in different fields are currently working in very, very different fields because they took some of these courses. Granted, some of them are paid because if you need to get deeper stuff, you need to, I'm seeing someone scribing the entire screen. That's strange text, but well, I hope we keep it clean so that others can also see the slide well. So back to what I was saying, take advantage of these learning opportunities, please. And guess what? Some known universities like Harvard do have free courses on their websites. This is unknown to many, but you can take advantage of these, and you do have certificates at the end. Like Benny said earlier on and took you through the CV preparation, you can put these certificates on your CVs, and it goes a long way into putting you in a certain bracket of people who employers do want. Well, it is essential to also stay up to date with the latest industry trends. You don't want to be a person who is so well versed in archaic information. So you could quote all the olden stuff, but the stuff that has changed, you have no clue to it. You would want to stay very much up to date with the latest trends and technologies. And you can get this by reading industry publications, attending conferences and webinars, and joining professional associations. Just like what you are currently in right now, it is getting yourself updated. There are people who have olden ways of getting into interviews, but guess what? Benny has showed you newer stuff, and more newer stuff is going to come up. Take these things seriously, even though they might be free. Take them very seriously. We are living in the information age, and information is dead cheap, if not free. So you kind of do not have too much of an excuse for not keeping up to date, okay? Because if the next trend comes, I believe you would know it by the next day. And if the whole celebrity gossip comes up, you kind of hear it. Use this power to update yourself in your field. By staying informed and up to date, you can demonstrate to employers that you are knowledgeable, proactive in your approach to your career. So guys, if you do leverage technology, you can increase your employability and marketability by building a very strong online presence, by either having a website or building a very good profile on the social media platforms, especially LinkedIn, and networking effectively, joining groups and all. So guys, at this moment, if you already aren't following me, and you can see at the bottom right side of the screen, you can follow. This is one of the steps. You might think, oh, come on, man, just one person to follow. No, all the people who spoke on this platform, from Gideon to Benny to Wilfred to myself, do well to follow, because we have wider network outreach. And once you're connected to us, you get closer to the wider pool. It looks like a small thing, but it is for your own advantage. Trying to do it tomorrow is not going to work. Once you can get it done now, it is a simple click, you get it done, and you put yourself in a pool of professionals that could help enhance your chances of being employed. Okay, so moving on to our third and final category. The third part of our discussion is going to be networking for career success. While having the right skills and experiences is important, it is also essential that you have strong professional network that can help you find job opportunities. Connect with industry professionals and learn about new trends and opportunities. Remember, your network is your net worth. The people you surround yourself with or the people you are connected to have a direct bearing on where you are in life, what job opportunities you have, what you're earning, and even your happiness. It is directly connected. Take a look at the people closest to you and take a look at your own self. Are you that far away? And I'm not saying ditch people who are not high flyers. However, you need to be deliberate with the people you allow in your circle and the people you connect to constantly. So, well, how is it going to be? You probably might be a student and you're thinking, how am I going to get close to, say, the CEO of a company, the HR head of a company, or like industry leaders? One of the tips is what I showed you earlier on. You get connected to people who are connected to them and you get closer, okay? There are students who have amazing networks on LinkedIn, and it's because they started early, they formed the right connections. You are not too far away from them. But please, in the connection, remember LinkedIn and the rest, well, no, the rest could be different, but LinkedIn is not a dating app. So you might see pretty pictures or handsome pictures. They are there for professional reasons. The ladies complain a lot with guys harassing them with, are you going to date me on LinkedIn? Please, no, don't do that. That's a no-no, all right? Connect for professional reasons, okay? Well, so how are you going to do that? First, start by building rapport, all right? You want to build good rapport with people in your immediate circle, such as industry thought leaders like Gideon, like Benny, Wilfred, myself, and other thought leaders. You do want to build good rapport with them. With your professors, if you are still in school, professors, lecturers, build good rapport with them. The fact that they come and see you or you get to see them constantly doesn't mean you have good rapport. Take deliberate action to build rapport, all right? You should also build good rapport with your colleagues and classmates. You should be known to be a person who is desirable to be employed, okay? And there are many ways in which you can showcase this. In subsequent presentations or seminars like this, we are going to touch deeper on these ones, all right? Now, if you get into the right circle with these ones, they can provide very valuable insights and connections that can help you in your career, okay? So don't take that for granted. Secondly, make it a point to attend industry events, job fairs, seminars, workshops, and conferences to meet professional folks in your field. A typical example is what you're currently in now, okay? Others could be webinars. Many of these ones are free. And guess what? If you're on LinkedIn, you get to get notifications of such webinars. Join them, listen to new stuff that are happening, network with the people in there. Remember, your network is your net worth. These provide excellent opportunities to network with like-minded people. So guys, don't take it for granted, especially it is free. We are so much of people wired to be consumers, to pay for things, that if things tend to be free, we think, oh, come on, man, what's the worth in this? Much of the time, the free stuff are the stuff that are going to get you in the door. So please take advantage of these ones. However, if you do have the budget to pay for more enhanced experience, do not spare the expense. So the third way of connecting with people too is to use social media to connect with professionals in your industry. Again, LinkedIn is going to come up. I'm going to hammer it because this is a professional targeted speech. So I'm going to hammer LinkedIn so much. It's free and it's very connected. This is very useful in this section of our discussion where you need to connect, because it allows you to connect with the professionals in your field. You get to follow them. Even if they don't connect back, you get to follow them and see their posts and see what they have in mind. Please take advantage of these. And finally, I'll tell you that stay connected. Okay, so it is not just necessary to just connect with the person and then go dormant. Sometimes you could check a person's profile and it's like the person has been active on LinkedIn for about 6 months. However, their profile is scheduled or structured right. Stay connected, please, to maintain your professional relationships. Because remember, if you keep yourself active in people's minds, and I do not mean stalking people, okay, or pestering people. But if you keep yourself connected, comment a little bit under your posts, send them quick messages, you stay in the minds of these ones. If there are some opportunities, you pop up ahead of those who are dormant. So stay connected to maintain your professional relationship with people that you have met in seminars, in meetings, that you've connected on social media. Keep constant touch with these ones. However, you don't want to be a housefly in the ears of many of these ones. Remember, people you are trying to get close to are very busy people. Industry leaders have tons of stuff to do. However, they are willing to help people, but they do not have a lot of time to offer. So you need to be very tactful with how you approach these ones, okay? Remember, if you are reaching out to be a mentor or a mentee to them, you are not the only one. They've got tons of people and they would want to share or spread themselves thin. So do not get downhearted or do not get offended if you do not even get a response on time. You need tact in approaching this. Others might readily respond, others might take time. You need to find the right balance in approaching this with them. If you do this right, this will help you to build a strong and supportive network that can help you advance, okay? Well, the other part too is that you would want to offer help. And the question you might ask is that, what kind of help can I give to people who are already up there? It's I who need the help, but you might be wrong. There are a lot of things that professionals who you wish to get into their circles need from you. Typical example is that if you know there's an upcoming seminar and you do have exceptional skills in, say, PowerPoint or putting together infographics or business info, drawing up charts and graphs, you could reach out to some of these ones and ask, hey, do you need any of this help? Remember, we're social animals, and I'm using animals in quotes. We would want to get close to people that are of less threat and that can benefit us in our survival. That's a basic instinct of every organism. And we aren't so different from even the bacteria or the lower animals we have. If you sound or appear to be a person who is always following a person, asking for help and asking for handouts, people are willing to help, but then compare that to you in the circle where you ask for help sometimes and offer to give help. Which of these two do you think a mentor would pay better attention to or would get personal with? We all need help. And even though it might be that the mentor would not need your help that particular moment, he has it in mind that this guy or this girl is really available to help. And guess what? That is very much linked to being employed. Employers would want people who would want to go overboard to deliver. And if you are offering help without even the promise of employability or the promise of being employed, guess what? If the opportunity for employment comes, who pops up first? So use this very well. Do not think you do not have anything to offer. You have a lot to offer. So, guys, in wrapping up, remember that enhancing your skills, leveraging technology, and networking effectively are all essential components of improving your employability and marketability. If you invest in your professional development, if you stay up to date with the latest trends and technologies, and build strong relationships with professionals in your field, look, you will increase your chances of securing employment and achieving your career goals. So remember that the job market is very, very competitive, and employers are looking for candidates who can demonstrate a strong work ethic, a commitment to continuous learning and development, and the ability to work effectively in a team. If you implement some of the strategies that we've discussed today, I'm not promising you, however, you can position yourself as one of the top candidates that will stand out in the crowd when it comes to the job market. So I'll encourage you to take this information we've covered today and apply it in your own job search and professional development. Work hard, because nothing good comes easy. Work very hard. If you put in dedication and a willingness to learn and adapt, you can achieve your career goals and build successful and fulfilling careers. So thank you for having me on this session today, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thanks, guys. Gideon.
Right. Thank you very much, Seth. We have really enjoyed this. Wilfred, please, are you there? Hello, Wilfred.
Hi, Gideon. Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, please go ahead.
All right. So thank you very much, Seth. And we've had the best of both worlds coming from Benny and then Seth. So 3 main themes from Seth's presentation. He focused on skills, networking, and then technology. Belly is actually in the bosom of HR. So you also realized his dimension. And when you look at the perspectives of both speakers, it gives us a whole meal for this evening. I know there are concerns from on the platform. Because the program has been recorded or is being recorded, you have the opportunity to play it back and then capture all the essential nuggets that Benny gave out. You also would have the privilege to listen to Seth again. I know most of you have questions. I would encourage you to type the questions in the chat area. But for the next 5 minutes, if you have any question for Seth or Benny, kindly raise your hand and then I will call you out to speak up. If you can't, just type it out and then I will read it to distinguished speakers. Any question for our speakers? So, Gifty Yankee, your hand is up. Hello, Gifty.
Yeah, hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Gifty. What's your question?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So my first question was to the first presenter with the CV writing. If I got him right, or maybe I didn't get him because my network wasn't really stable. Is it okay to have a template? And then as and when the opportunities pops up, you have to edit it to suit the new opportunity. And then the second question is to Seth. With the technology, the issue is not with joining or being active on the various pages. Let's say I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on Facebook, TikTok, and all that. But I think the problem personally, my personal problem, is with managing the various platforms. So what's your take on that?
All right. Thank you very much, Gifty. So, Benny, I would come to you. Let me take another question and then you can have run at them. Suleiman Mbaba, what's your question, Suleiman?
Yes.
With all the explanations, I just want to know how many pages is needed in preparing a CV, because at times you see some people having 3, 4 pages or 5 pages in their when you're writing CVs. I want to know how many pages are needed in preparing a CV.
All right, that's very snappy. Benny, so let's take Gifty's question and then you tie in Suleiman's as well.
All right, thank you, Wilfred. I think Gifty asked a question on if you need to have a template to edit for every job advert, right? Wilfred.
Yes, that's a question, yeah.
All right, Gifty, if you remember, I gave the various types of CVs, and I mentioned that with the targeted CV type, you actually have to tailor the CV to suit the requirements of the role. So for such CVs, yes, you would have to update for every job advert. However, for the other types, that is the functional, chronological, and the combined CVs, you don't really need to do that. What you need to do is to update the CV if there are new inputs that you have to add to the old CV that you drafted before you share to any, job adverts. However, what you need to remember is that when you are submitting a CV, remember I mentioned you also observe, you have to identify the key accountabilities in terms of the job description and the person's specification. You have to ensure that these key items appear on your CV. We have something that we call the ATS, Applicant Tracking System. Now, the applicant tracking system is designed in such a way that it identifies key elements relevant to the role from CVs before it's sent to the recruiter. So the ATS does its initial screening, takes out those that do not meet the role requirements, and then sends those that meet the requirements for what we call the pre-screening and the shortlisting. So it is important that when you are submitting the CV, yes, you do not update it, in totality. However, you take your time to review the job advert, ensure that you have some of the key elements in the job adverts that are required by the role in your CV. So you just have to update it, not necessarily drafting everything all over again. Responding to the second question on the number of pages needed for a CV. So look, I've had instances where people have come to me to say they've seen online that your CV has to be a one-pager, and others say maximum, two pages. And I always tell them, the size of the CV can actually be like a booklet because it depends on the experience level of the person. If the person has worked for several companies, if you're writing a chronological type of CV, you cannot put that on a single page or a two-pager if you've worked for so many years and been moving from different companies. It is important that you showcase the specific accountabilities that you've been involved in, the companies that you've worked with, the durations that you've worked in, the skills that you have and possess. And so, as such, you cannot put all of these in just one page. But if the role advert requires for a resume, then obviously you are looking at, because you see, the resume focuses or gives you a concise picture of your skills and qualifications for a specific position. So the length tends to be shorter, compared to the CV, because the length of the work history and your educational background. So you cannot really put that in just one page or two pages. So to respond to your question, it depends on your level of experience, but maximum, we normally advise maximum 13 to 15 pages. But obviously, it will be for you to have that number of pages as a CV, then I'm sure probably you've been working for more than 30 years or 40 years. But obviously, within 1 to 5 pages, that should be okay.
All right, thank you very much, Benny. So, Seth, there was a question from Gifty regarding how to manage the various networking platforms. What will be your response to her? Hello. Hello.
All right, sorry guys, I
Hello.
was muted by the host. I'm now let free. All right, so the question as to managing all the various social networks, that's hard work. Okay, that's hard work. And you don't have to if you can't. So focus on just one. Okay. However, some social media platforms allow cross-linking of profiles. Okay. So you could post a thing on, say, Facebook, and you can choose to share that across your other social media platforms, say on Twitter, on Instagram, or on LinkedIn. There is that feature with some of the social networks. I don't know so much about TikTok, whether it allows that. That seems to be a maverick social media platform. But, well, that on the side, there are social media managing apps that kind of put together all your social media stuff into one app where managing it from a central location is easy. However, don't get all fancy about this. If it's professional network you're trying to grow, just focus on LinkedIn. That is good enough. If you've gotten enough leverage and traction on LinkedIn and you're trying to extend it to other social media platforms, that is fine. But if you feel overwhelmed managing all these things, please focus on just one, which is the LinkedIn. All right. Did that answer your question? Is it Gifty? Well, wait, did I just speak into a muted mic? Hello?
It says you can hear you. I think they are muted, so they can't respond.
Yeah, Seth,
Oh,
we can hear you.
muted. All right.
Seth,
All right, cool.
yeah,
So
you are clear.
if you heard me, then I do hope I answered your question.
Okay.
If not, you can come back.
Okay. Wilfred, please go ahead.
Yeah. I'm in a meeting.
Gideon, I'm muted. Oh.
Sure. Okay.
You are on now, Wilfred.
Thank you very much, Seth. So we want to acknowledge the presence of students from Amstead. That is Akintena Pia Menka University of Skills, Training and Entrepreneurial Development. We have quite a number of them on this call with us, and at the right time, we would give them our official welcome. We'll still take the questions. If your question has been answered, I would encourage you to please lower your hand so that we'll be able to take the new questions from our participants. We have about 28 minutes more to end. By 9 o'clock, we'll draw the curtain down this program. So the recording would be on the various platforms, the TES platform, the interview center, and then the safety platforms. So for those who would want to know where the recordings would be, the TES platforms, the interview center, and then the safety platform. So these are the areas we're going to put the recording. If you have any question, please raise your hand. I seem not to find any in the chat. Okay, so Nakoli, what's your question?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Nana.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I wanted a little clarification from Benny. He made mention of you, the candidate, preparing ahead of the interview by setting questions for yourself. I wanted to know if it's from the key responsibilities of the job requirement. Thank you.
All right, Benny, over to you.
Hi, now, I mentioned earlier also that when you're setting the questions, the concentration or the focus is on the key accountabilities and the person specification. The person specification gives you the key attributes in terms of the competencies required for the role. So once you've been able to identify the key elements from the key accountabilities that pertain to the role, you try to set your questions around these key elements and find expected responses to them. Practice them personally and then you practice them and get yourself ready for the interview. Go for it.
Nana, is that okay? Is the response okay with you?
Yes, that is fine. Thank you for your clarity.
All right.
Sure.
So, Benny, you mentioned the STAR technique, the situation, the task, the activity, and then the results. And so this technique, does it run through all forms of interview, or you use the STAR technique in a particular interview for a particular role?
So not specifically role, but then the type of interview questions. We have different types of interview questions. We have the behavioral, we have the situational and all that. So I mentioned that the STAR technique is actually used in responding to the situational interview type of questions. The examples I gave, which responds to the questions we set for the administrative officer job advert, key elements that we identified. All of those questions were situational based interview questions. And for that reason, you have to use the STAR technique. However, in our next session, I think I've seen that Gideon circulated that on the 16th, which is next 2 weeks. We will discuss into detail how to use the STAR technique, how to address situational and behavioral questions, and the rest.
All right. So we'll make a date with you on that. Perez, you have a question. What's your question, Perez? Hello, Perez. Okay, so Perez isn't ready. Who is AF?
No, hello, Wilfred.
Yes, Gideon.
Sorry, I muted him, so I'm unmuting. Okay, so
all right.
Perez, you can go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Perez.
Yeah, good evening. My question is about the HR, how their selection process. I'm using AG for an example because I'm in Obuasi and I've been applying to their job adverts. They use this application. I think it's the success factor something. Yes, I don't know. We've been applying so many times. They talk of the experience, the requirements, everything we are qualified to, but I don't know where we are wrong. Maybe is it how?
Hello, Perez.
Hello.
Yeah, please. Let's take this question offline. This one this thing we are organizing is a personal thing to help all students in the universities. I beg you, it has nothing to do with any organization. So please let's limit the questions to the content that have been shared. We don't want to mention any organization on this. We are only sharing to help people build their capacity to be able to pass interviews. So please, we don't want to mention any organization here. And that is the disclaimer. All the speakers represent themselves. And we are not doing this in any organization's name whatsoever. So you can actually take it offline and have your discussion at a later date. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Thanks
well, sorry for that.
No, don't
sorry
worry.
for that. I have another question. No, that one is different. That one is general.
Go ahead.
This relates to Mr. Benny Smith. I think when he was talking, he said they will be scheduling another meeting. If they are able to go through, I wanted them to educate us on how these two is being, how we can fill them. Do you get me? How the system is, how it works, and then how maybe when we are applying for jobs, how we can go about it and then fill them.
All right. So, Perez.
Boss.
All right. So you.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. So your question should be within the boundaries of the team that we have given. These are resource persons that we have invited. And so just like Gideon mentioned, they are not speaking on behalf of any organization, if you have a peculiar challenge with a particular application process, then would want you to revert to the right channel.
Okay.
Benny is a resource person, and he's speaking in his
Yeah.
personal capacity and not that for Anglo Gold Ashanti, or for that matter, any other company.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
the conversation on the application tracking process, he can give you a
Yeah.
generalized view on what the application
Yeah,
tracking
something like
process
that.
does, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure he can speak to what exists where he works from. So
No, I'm not. I mean the application, how it works, because I
perfect.
missed his time when he
Perfect.
was talking. Yeah.
Okay, so join us for the next session, and he would address that for you. That is part of the
All right.
conversation that he will be addressing. Thank you very much. Joanna Biney. Joanna Biney, what's your question?
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, Joanna.
Organized for NSS personnel. Please, did you hear me?
No, please say that again.
Please, I wanted to ask if there are interviews also organized for NSS. Is it video call? Before they are accepted.
Okay, so Benny, her question is, she wants to know if there are interviews for national service persons before they are accepted. And so this depends on the organization's own unique process. So you may go to one organization and they will say that, okay, once you've been posted, you come in and then they accept you. Another organization would say that you would have to go through an interview process for you to be selected as a national service person. So that is not really cast in stone. It depends on the organization you want to have your service with and what their internal process is. Okay. So that should answer you, Joanna.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Okay.
All right, Joanna, are you satisfied with the response?
Yes, please. I'm okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mohammed Osman Kukula, what's your question? Hello, Mohammed.
Already is muted.
No, now everyone is unmuted, so he should be able to speak.
Okay. Yeah, Mohammed. So you have the floor. So Mohammed is not ready. Yao Maba, your microphone is on.
Good evening once again.
Hi, Yao. What's your question?
My question is, when Mr. Benny was talking about how to acquire skills, I realized that he mentioned some thematic areas that as job seekers to take note of, that is internships, voluntary work, and so many other things. My question has to do with if an individual is under his or her boss, had acquired necessary skills in an organization or institution, and a job opportunity comes up in that institution or organization. Having acquired the necessary skills in the institution or organization applies for the job. However, the HR ask him or her to get a recommendation from his or her boss, which probably could be a professor, and the person is not willing to give the recommendation for such an individual to be recruited, what skills or technique can the person do in order to get the job secured?
Interesting question, yeah. Benny, your response.
I'm actually smiling here.
It looks very familiar.
Yeah. Anyway, what's his name? I've forgotten the name. Is it Mohammed?
His name is Yao.
Yao. Look, the essence of when you are working. Hello, Yao, I can hear you. Let me just respond. Hello. All right. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, internally, when you are applying for a role, the reasons for organization, asking you to seek the consent of your manager is because, remember, you were recruited for that particular role to support the manager. Just imagine yourself, going to being the manager, and then you're working with your direct reports on a particular project. And then all of a sudden, the next week, HR comes to them comes to you compared to a different section. Without his knowledge, he has no idea of this. He knows he has recruited you for a particular role and you're working in that role. And then all of a sudden he's surprised. Obviously, you wouldn't be happy. So it is not for them to really, say no or whatever, but then to also give their consent to the fact that they approve of your decision to move into or apply for this role. And if you are found suitable for the role, then you should be moved into the other role. In terms of your second question was on the skills and I think skills and something to make to be able to go overboard what your supervisor says. I don't think it's more of a skill. It's just about engagement. You should be able to engage your manager to let him understand the essence for which your career growth needs this particular opportunity. And I'm sure every reasonable being and everyone who, is working with you and is in your good would definitely approve of this. So it shouldn't be a problem. Just speak to your manager. And if you think you've engaged your manager, you're not getting the necessary support, just escalate it to your manager's manager. If you still don't get the support you require, take it to HR and let it be discussed officially. Okay.
Thank you very much, Benny. So earlier on, I mentioned that we have students from the Apia Menkan University of Skills Training and Entrepreneurial Development. The questioner, Prince Yao Malba, is actually an SRC presidential hopeful for that institution. And you can deduce that from the depth of the question that he asked. And for those that are in several organizations, you realize that usually this is a trend that comes up. I would want to give him just 30 seconds for him to introduce himself and then to his fellow students from Upstead, and then tell us what he has in store for them when he becomes the SRC president-elect. So Prince, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity given me to address my honorable members. Good evening. Indeed, I'm Prince Malba Yao, SRC President of Hopeful, come in August. I want to tell my colleagues in Amstead that we have just finished our mid-semester, and the semester is just going to an end. Wishing them all the best in the coming end of semester exams. Indeed, if I'm giving the nod, this is some of the programs I
Prince, can you reposition yourself? Your line is...
To be inspired, empowered as we move Monday to... I think that safety, the academic is possible. So as I was mentioning, that these are series of programs that I would personally get them not to lead the student front. We will bring on board people
Hello.
to come as that when we will be among the practice.
Hello, Prince.
Yes, sir.
Your line is in very bad shape.
Wow.
You have the next 20 seconds to run up. I want you to position yourself and give a strong summary, something that will leave a lasting impression in the minds of your colleagues. So please do this right. In the next 20 seconds, I take the microphone away from you.
Thank you very much. So, students of arms. Hello, is the line okay now, sir?
The line is okay. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. So, students of arms said, as I was saying, this program that we are having is a collaboration from our brothers, our experienced people, and I'm saying that these are some of the things. If you give me the nod as your next SRC president, we will bring on board so that we get the necessary skills, experienced people to come and give us more training on this things as we go out to seek for jobs.
All right. Okay.
I call on all of you.
Thank you very much, Prince. Thank you. We also want to acknowledge the presence of students from University College of Education, Winneba, students from the University of Ghana, KNUST, Obuasi, KNUST, Kumasi. You are all acknowledged for your unwavering commitment to the cause of the empowerment series. By way of announcement, kindly note that the Advanced Diploma in Safety program, registration for this program is ongoing. And on the campus of KNUST, you have Nana Yerinchi, and then you have Caleb. On the campus of Amstead, you have Said Abdul Wahid. And on the campus of University of Education, Winneba, you have Benjamin. And on the campus of University of Ghana, you have Joy. And finally, the University of Choice, you also have a delegate there who would coordinate all of this for us. Gideon, what will be your last words before we draw the curtain on today's program?
All right, thank you, Wilfred. I want to thank Kwame Benny Smith and Seth Adeje for this wonderful presentation. I want to emphasize or repeat that the part 2 will happen on in 2 weeks' time. That'll be on 16th April. So we have shared the flyer and we'll be reminding all participants. In fact, sorry for the initial difficulties. A lot of people couldn't join initially, but it's the Zoom package has been upgraded to take 1,000 people. So in our section or part 2, we expect to actually host a lot of people. So please tell your friends the part 2 will happen, and we'll be privileged to have Benny and Seth Adeje still speaking to the issues that they couldn't touch on. So yes, and thank you all for coming. I'm happy. I have enjoyed the entire session. I've picked a lot of new things, and I believe that you have also done the same. I hand it over to you, Wilfred, to conclude and end the session.
All right. Thank you very much. So by way of actions on us, Benny will share the templates and we'll put the various templates on our various platforms for you. And try the templates, put something on it, and let us have your questions. Our resource persons are on the platform. So whatever questions you have, just ask them based on the discussion that has just happened, and they would find time to respond to you as well. So we'll draw the curtain on today's show, and then we look forward to you joining us on the 16th for another insightful conversation on the empowerment series. Thank you very much for spending the last 2 hours with us. God bless you and have a fantastic week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Wilfred.
Thank you very much.